It has been said that in Twilight Struggle, you need to know the cards well in order to play well. Well, we're going to take you through every card one by one, and we're going to help you become a master at Twilight Struggle. This is Legendary Tactics. The Asia scoring card, card number 1. Asia is made up of 6 battlegrounds and 15 total countries. And for most of turn 1, it's going to be the focus of both factions. For the USSR and the United States, Europe is going to get bogged down pretty quickly, especially once the DEFCON drops below 5. And the USSR has some advantages in the Middle East, which are going to limit what the US is going to be able to do there. And because it's in the early war, we don't really need to worry about the Americas or Africa at this point. Your focus should be mainly in Asia. In the early war, the fate of Asia will be decided, oddly enough, by what happens with Iran. Normally, the first move the USSR does will to coup Iran. Sometimes it's Italy, sometimes it's a different move, but in general, the first move will be USSR coup on Iran. If it is a success, and especially a strong success, then basically that makes Pakistan and India and so forth very vulnerable to the Soviets. Now, it's very likely whoever wins Iran will be able to move into Pakistan and India without too much trouble. From that point onward, the 2 main battlegrounds that will be contested will be South Korea and Thailand. Japan is essentially American held, even though it isn't, controlled at the beginning of the game. The US-Japan card will essentially wipe out any Russian influence in Japan, so it's never a good idea to play into Japan because that one event card can wipe out any support that has been built up and give control of the country to the Americans. Now, if Iran is just shifted weakly to the Soviet side, the Soviets will have to defend Iran very likely, and in many cases will invite a counter coup on the part of the United States. Now, in many ways, Thailand is the most crucial battleground in Asia, because it is particularly vulnerable with only a 2 stability. The US has easy access due to Australia. However, the USSR has some great events to help them to break into that part of the world. These 3 event cards will be the key Russian cards in the early war that will allow them to have access to Asia. So Thailand really is a crucial battleground, with Japan basically decided, North Korea decided, and potentially South Korea decided as well if the Korean War event doesn't work out in the favor of the USSR. Then Thailand becomes that swing battleground state that you will be fighting over for pretty much the entire game. A quick word on the Formosan Resolution event, which can affect the Asian scoring card because it turns Taiwan into a battleground country until the US plays the China card for the first time after the event is played. This is very unlikely to influence play. Taiwan's very expensive in terms of ops to spend to control, and given the fact that it can be so easily negated in a later play, it's really not worth it for the US to do much with this particular event, but it is something that could factor into the Asian scoring. When it comes to controlling Asia, one of the wild cards is the Indo-Pakistani war card. And the only way to basically ensure that Pakistan or India are safe is to shore up their neighbors in order to affect the die roll. So plays like that will effectively hinder, if not negate, the Indo-Pakistani war card. India is never totally safe, but you can basically prevent Pakistan from falling victim to this card, and it will be locked down pretty effectively. Now, one of the important but standard moves on the US side that can be very effective is to use your last action round, as the US always goes last, to use your last action round to basically break control in a key battleground state. And what that will do is that will force the Russian player on the next turn to either fix the damage that's been done here, or to give up their battleground coup that they normally would do in their first action round of the new turn. Now, players will find that Asia typically becomes pretty locked down and pretty static, especially as you enter the mid-war. And that's just because typically DEFCON is at 2 or 3, and you're not going to see the same dramatic shifts in the region because there is just simply no coups or realignments possible. Now, typically, the cards that are really going to make a big difference in Asia in the mid-war will be the cards that are centered around the China card, and basically giving the players a chance to use the China card and then take it right back. So, for example, you can see here in the Nixon plays the China card. If the Russian player has the China card, the US player receives it face down and unavailable for immediate play, but it is back in their hand, ready to be used the following turn. The most powerful of these is the Ussuri River Skirmish, which basically allows the US player to claim it face up and ready to go, so you can have get to the opportunity to use it, and then play the Ussuri River Skirmish to take it right back and use it again. If the US already has the China card, then adding 4 US influence in Asia, no more than 2 per country, can be very powerful in terms of breaking up control of, because you don't need to worry about paying the extra op to break the control. So it can be very powerful, and that is one of the better US events in the game, in my opinion. Another card that can be powerful is Brush War. There are a few other game changer kind of events where it can break a bit of the gridlock and swing some battlegrounds your way. But for the most part, Asia is going to be locked down, and you're going to be distracted. By the time you get to the mid-war, Africa and South America and Central America open up. And so there's just a lot of other parts of the world where you can spend those ops and those events. So for the most part, you want to play for Asia in the early game, in the early war, and get as much control, or at least a gridlock, and that way you can at least make sure that the opponent isn't gaining ground on you with this crucial region. Another card that can affect the scoring of Asia is Shuttle Diplomacy. Now, as a US player, I wouldn't likely spend this for the event because those 3 ops are way too valuable to be used elsewhere. However, if the USSR player has played that and given me that event, it's not a bad thing. It may have a small amount of effect in the scoring. It really depends on where things are at. Certainly, if out of the 6 battlegrounds, if the US is down 4-2, then it really is not going to make any difference. However, if it's even, if the battlegrounds have been split and the US happens to have more countries under their control, then it can swing the scoring a few victory points to your favor. So it's not a bad event, but I wouldn't prioritize it as far as making sure that you play it for the event as the US player. Interestingly, in the late war, there are no events that directly affect anyone's position in Asia. So there are events that can benefit, but they're not specific to Asia. So in many cases, you're going to find Asia as locked down as it was in the mid-war, with similar opportunities to shift control, mainly by placing influence, mainly by events like Brush War or the use of the China card. There's some debate online as to whether it makes sense for the US to headline the Asian scoring card on the first turn. And the consensus seems to be that it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you don't have any other good cards to headline. And I would agree with that. The momentum that you can gain from a great headline in the game can be far more valuable to you than getting the Asian scoring card out of the way. So unless you have nothing else better, I would hold off from headlining the Asian scoring card in the first turn. This has been an overview of how to use the Asian scoring card in Twilight Struggle. Also, we looked at the region in general, how the influence develops typically over the course of the game, and hopefully you picked up a few ideas on how best to time the use of this card. This has been NATO and Legendary Tactics. Please like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed this card summary, and looking forward to doing some more for you. Take care.